Hi, you guys. Welcome back to the Amani Talks podcast. You're here with your host, Amani Talks, and we have a friend, okay? Not just a special guest, girl. We got a friend in the building, Mrs. Christy St. Cyr-Allen.
Yes,
That's a
thank you.
mouthful, girl.
It is. It is. And that's why I was telling you, I might have to drop it, but
Yeah.
thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be
Oh, I'm
here.
so excited. She was just telling me off camera, she was like, this is such like a full circle moment for us. And it really is because when I was modeling, you were creative directing the shoots, for a brand that we were both working with. And even before that, she had invited me out somewhere and I couldn't make it. So now it's just like, I'm inviting her out. And I
Yes.
feel like it's just going to be, I'm excited for our
So
conversation.
divine.
Definitely. So tell the audience a little bit about what you're doing right now, what you
Okay,
do.
so I'm a social media strategist. I actually do social media directing for a church in Atlanta, but I also do it on the side. I'm a consultant, so I do it one-on-one with different brands and creatives. I do content days, photo shoots, so just a creative entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But that's what I do, and I'm a wife, so can't forget that.
I love
That's why
how
I'm
the girls are
here.
just in their creative bags. I feel like everyone I'm meeting,
Yes.
like, oh, I work in marketing for this company or social media content create. Like, I'm
Yes.
just like, I love that for us.
You can do whatever you want to do.
Oh my gosh, you
Yes.
definitely can. You definitely can. We're following up from an amazing conversation, that I had with Mrs. Brittany Gold about her marriage and her very, a different way of doing things. And I just wanted to also get your background. Just like give us a little bit about your spiritual journey, sorry. And just like where did it come from? Is this something that did you grow up in a church? Is this something new for you? How
Okay,
was that?
so I did grow up in the church. My dad was a pastor.
Okay.
My dad would help people start their churches, but then before he passed, he had his own church. So I am a PK, I'm a pastor's kid, and I loved it because one, I just felt safe. I don't feel like I grew up in a household that was very like toxic. Like my family was very solid. I'm the youngest of three. I have two older brothers, and my parents were married for 27 years before my father passed away. So I definitely grew up in ministry. I never had like a prophetic word that said that I would be in ministry, but I do work in ministry now as a social media director.
Yeah.
But I'm also like a part of the women's ministry at my church as one of the leaders. But that's my life. Like I didn't think this would be my life, but this is what I ended up doing.
Yeah.
I always thought I would be like a real estate agent, maybe lawyer, which I did dabble into real estate a little bit.
Yeah.
But my life is like nothing what I thought.
Yeah.
Nothing like it.
A preacher's kid, they said that y'all be going either way.
Yeah.
It's just like you go rogue and you can't even tell that you grew up in a church, or it's just like you really stay in the faith and you do what your parents were doing. So it's nice to see because I see a lot of preachers' kids that go the other way.
I did both. I did both. So growing up, I was very rebellious because my parents were so strict. I'm Haitian.
Okay.
So I grew up in a very strict Haitian household, on top of it being a Christian household. So there was a lot that I couldn't do. And I just felt like very trapped growing up. So I was very rebellious. I would run away all the time.
Really?
Yes, girl. Like I would just run away, just doing what I want to do.
Yeah.
But I think when my father passed away, it kind of got me in order. Like I got myself together. I ended up getting a scholarship to college and getting like really good jobs like right out of high school. So
Yeah.
I think God knew that I needed something to shake up my world. Although it is a loss, I feel like everything happens for a reason. I know people don't like when people say that, but literally looking back in my life, I can see how God planned and orchestrated everything, even if it wasn't the best feeling, even if it didn't feel good, even if it took my family through some pain. I can definitely see why everything happened the way that it did.
Definitely. God can find a purpose in everything.
Everything.
So just going back to that, you were saying that I'm American, and my parents were very strict on me growing up. My mom was very much so. And I can just imagine just from the conversations of immigrant children that they say that their parents are like, they don't play.
Yes.
What kind of an impact did it have on you? Because they say that, when your parents were really, really strict and you were saying that you used to like run away and stuff all the time, do you feel like that was a negative impact, or looking back, now that you're a little bit older, do you look back and say, I'm glad my parents did raise me that way?
So I'm glad my parents raised me that way. I can definitely say that because it gave me a standard. Looking back, I don't like what I put my parents through. I think that I gave them hell and I shouldn't have. So like in my heart, like sometimes I get sad. Like when I think about what I put my mom through and my dad through, but I can see how it shaped me and molded me to be who I am today.
Yeah.
So like now I have experience, not the experience that 15, 14-year-old girls should have, but I have experience. So hopefully in the future, I can have something to speak to when I have children. So
Definitely. It makes you relatable. The Christian walk is definitely never perfect. It's always a lot of times up and down. It was for me. I was talking to Brittany about how for years I was totally like, I didn't even talk to people about how I knew God because I didn't want to give them a bad name because of what I was doing.
mhm.
It's easy for people to look back on what they were doing, or even for other people looking outside in to judge, especially being a preacher's kid. Like, I
Mhm.
know that your parents got it bad. They was probably
Yes.
talking bad about your parents so bad in the
Girl.
church. Like, what is your kid doing? Where's she at? I ain't see her
Girl,
this
with
Sunday.
my parents being Haitian, they were talking bad. Like, Haitian parents, they'll talk about you in your face.
Yeah.
Like, they don't care.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So with the journey being, up and down, I think that it serves a purpose. Like you said, it doesn't feel good in the moment, but God uses all things. And I think that number one, it makes us relatable. It makes it so that people don't look at us as, oh, perfect, you grew up
mhm.
perfect. That does not exist. And I feel like a lot of times when we do grow up and we have our own strong relationship with God, it's because of the negative things that were going on in our lives before. Like, we're drawing from that and we're just like, I'm done with that. Like, been there,
Exactly.
done that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So at that age, I might have thought, I don't like this. I don't want to be here. This is not the life that I want. But looking back, my parents did a great job.
Yeah.
Like, they protected me, they covered me, and I had everything that I needed. Like, my parents provided for us. So
Yeah.
I have nothing to complain about looking back now. So
Definitely. So let's get into the marriage because, this is our marriage season. So, okay. How old are you, Christy?
I'm 28.
Okay,
I turned
28.
29 this year, though, in August.
Okay, coming
Yeah,
up. What age did you get married?
25.
25.
So
Okay.
I was engaged at 24, married at 25.
That's kind of young.
Yeah, looking back it was, but, we always wanna get married early.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that was, like, on the forefront of my mind, but I did it, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It wasn't something that was like, "Oh, I wanna get married," but 25 felt like a good age when I was 25. Looking back now, I'm like, "Oh, I was kinda young."
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you've been married 4 years.
Almost 3. Engaged for,
Oh,
like, a
okay.
couple months, well, a year, and then we got married in, 2021, July.
Okay.
So it's coming up on 3
Coming up
years.
on 3 years.
Yes.
You low key a vet to some people.
Uh
Some people would be 2 years and they'd be like, nah, I can't. I can't take it no more.
Listen, it's hard. It's not easy. So I
Yeah.
could see why people feel that way, but listen, glory to God. We're still doing it.
Y'all still alive and
Yeah.
kicking. So how did you meet your husband?
So I moved to Atlanta December of 2019, like 3 months before the pandemic, and we met at the gym the first month that I moved here, but we didn't start dating until the pandemic hit. So that's how we met. I met him at the gym. He was working there as an assistant manager, and I came in, signing up for the gym. I wanted a tour, wanted to, get to know the gym that I was coming to, and he decided to give me a tour, and we just connected. I just felt something. I felt something. I don't know what it was. I'm not gonna say it was the Holy Spirit because
Yeah.
I wasn't tapped in like that, but I do remember going home and telling my friend back home that I met my husband.
So you're saying that you weren't like tapped in like that? Are you saying that you weren't like really strong?
Spiritually at
Okay,
all.
okay.
No, I came to Atlanta. I thought I was gonna be outside.
Okay.
I thought I was gonna have a great time, living my best life, but God has a way of like turning things around. But
Definitely.
definitely for our good.
Okay. So you met him and you like telling your friends, "Oh, I met my husband."
Yeah.
What was it like? Like, you met him
It
and
was his aura. Like, there was just something about him. Like, I can think about it now, just looking back, walking in the gym and just seeing his face and his smile and just feeling like he's different.
yeah.
Because I dated, you know what I mean? I had boyfriends, but I never had that feeling before.
Yeah.
So I can't really explain it, but I just knew something was different about him.
So was he in church at that time or
No.
what was Okay.
Mm-mm. He was actually separated. He was going through a divorce. Yes.
Wow.
So he had been separated for maybe like 4 months at that point, and I had just moved to Atlanta, left a toxic relationship. I was like, I'm out of here. I'm moving. So we were both in a really weird space. But I think that God allowed us to like really sit and have those deep conversations during the pandemic because we didn't go on dates. We couldn't go outside.
Yeah.
We couldn't go out to eat. We couldn't do anything except sit and talk. And we were not sexually active at the beginning of our relationship. So for me, I think that although it wasn't ideal, I wouldn't tell women, go date a man that's going through a divorce. I knew that he was done with that relationship. I knew that he had moved on and that they were literally working on the divorce. And maybe like 2 months after we started talking, they were divorced. So
Okay. So how does it come about that you guys, okay, you start talking or dating, whatever. And obviously now I see that you are on your spiritual journey. I can't get that word out. Spiritual journey. So is that like a decision that y'all made together? Like who initiated it? Like how does that come to be?
So I think the seed was always planted in both of us because he went to church growing up, not as much as me, because obviously I'm a PK. I went to church 5 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
But I got to a point where I wanted community. Like we got married, but we didn't really have friends that like he had friends because he's from Atlanta, but I didn't. So I wanted to start building my community. I wanted to start meeting people. And the only way that I knew how to do that was at church
Okay.
because I'm a PK. So we joined a church. And from there, we both made that decision together. Like, we need to change. Like, we were smoking a lot of weed. We were drinking every weekend. Like, we weren't on the narrow path, basically.
Yeah.
And we just decided to make the decision together. Like when we got married, we knew that we wanted to honor God, but we didn't know what it looked like. So it wasn't until we joined the church and we started learning more about what God says about marriage that we decided that, okay, we got to get it together.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. We decided to do it together.
That's so interesting because when I hear about people getting married young, because I consider 24, 25 kind of young. You think that it's a lot of times it's people in the church, it's people in whatever religion that they're in. But that wasn't the case for you. So why did you decide to get married so young?
So I don't think it was something that I decided to do. I think that it was something that we both wanted to do. So although he was going through his separation, he says that he didn't really want to get married again. I did not force him to get married. I did not ask him to be my husband. I didn't do any of that. I think it just happened naturally with us discussing what our futures look like, what we wanted out of our families, like what we saw for ourselves. It just was the natural thing to do to get married because what's the benefit of staying single and living together for the rest of your life? There
Yeah.
is none. So we just decided, let's give it a shot and let's get married. And honestly, I I really feel like if it wasn't for my foundation in God, that we probably wouldn't have gotten married because I knew that I wanted to be a wife and I wasn't going to be a girlfriend forever.
Yeah.
I had dated in the past and I was okay with being a girlfriend in the past, but in the back of my mind, I always wanted to be a wife. But I was never like, oh, I'm wifey. Oh, he has to wife me. I've never gave that. Like, it was always like, cool, we're together and eventually I'll have to get married. But I never like pressured him or forced him into it.
Okay. So was there any reservation about dating a man that was divorced?
No.
Okay.
No, I never wanted to be the second wife, but I was never like, oh, I'm not going to give a divorced man a chance. Never.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think everybody deserves a second chance. And
Okay.
sometimes you end up being second and you end up being the best thing he ever had.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, definitely. In the back of your mind, even though you say that you kind of, you wanted marriage, that's what you desired, was your faith a role in that? Even though that wasn't the walk that you were on at the moment, because you grew up in the church, was that something that you were like, I don't want to live in sin? Or was it really just because, hey, we're together, so let's get married?
I think it was a little bit of both. I didn't want to live in sin for the rest of my life. Like I have that foundation. I know that I need to be married. My parents were married for 27 years. His parents were married for almost 30 years. So we both knew that like marriage was a thing that we could do and we wanted to do, but it wasn't something that we rushed into. It wasn't something that was like, oh, we have to get married so we don't live in sin. It was never that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you guys, were you like living together before you got married?
We were living together.
Okay.
We shacked up. We sure did. And it was great because I got to know him on that level. And I felt like I don't recommend it because obviously I'm deep in my walk now. And I'm not going to tell the girls to do that. But we did it. And I don't see anything wrong with it for my relationship and my situation. I felt like it really gave me a chance to get to know him on that level, just to see different sides of him and just to see like if he was responsible, if he was clean, if he, could take care of the home. So for me, I like the fact that we lived together.
Okay.
And I didn't have family and friends out here. Like he made me feel safe. He made me feel protected. So I felt like it was okay for us to live together, but I don't recommend it.
Do you think that because you didn't have your friends and family out here that kind of pushed you to kind of want to do that because he was the only person that was really on your team at the time?
I wouldn't say that because, like I said, when I moved here, I wanted to be outside. So I didn't want somebody living with me. But when we started dating, it was like he became my best friend. I want to be around my best friend.
Yeah.
So to me, it was like, okay, let's just live together. We're together all the time anyways.
Yeah.
We were quarantined together. So it just felt right that you're not going outside, catching COVID and bringing it back here. Let's just live together. So That's how I felt.
Okay. So how long before you like met him, like the day at the gym,
Okay.
to you guys getting married?
So we met in December of 2019. We started dating in March of 2020, and we got engaged August 2020.
That is a
Yes.
fast engagement.
Yes.
You know, I'm really like surprised at the story, because for you guys to not, you know, be I guess kind of like in a season of you being close to God and, you know, doing it, you know, the quote unquote right way, you guys still kind of did it, like, you know, like
I think
very
it was a
short.
desire for us to be married, but we weren't like, it wasn't our focal point in our relationship. It just happened naturally. Like, we started dating officially in March. His divorce was final in June.
Yeah.
And I guess he went and got the ring right after that, because he asked me to marry him on my birthday month in August.
So he just knew.
He just knew.
Yeah.
He just knew.
There's proof for you.
Yeah.
If he wants to, he will.
Yes.
If he wants to, he will.
Yes.
Definitely.
Maybe you should sit down with the guys next.
You know, at first, because remember, I was asking you guys, I was like, oh, I want your husbands to be here to talk. But I was like, you know, not that I don't appreciate the man perspective, but I just like talking to the girls a little bit more.
Yeah.
But that is actually a very interesting, you know, because women don't, they aren't the ones that choose marriage. You know, the man chooses if he wants to get married, and then he picks his wife, you know, pretty much. So, you know, it is a very, you know, it would be a different perspective to get the man up here and say, what made you find marriage important in a world where marriage is not important? It's not taken as seriously as it should be. It's not revered whatsoever. People get married and get divorced. You know, that's why I said 3 years in, you doing good, girl. So yeah, I think next I probably will have the guys on, because that's, you know, we have to hear from them too about what's going on in your mind that made it so like, this is my wife. Because I think that God reveals it to the man. Okay, go ahead. The green light. I don't think it happens with women so much like that. I don't think that we think, oh, this is my husband. You know, not too often. Because if I'm being honest, I've never felt that about a guy, ever.
Yeah,
ever.
I'd never felt it either until I met him.
Yeah.
So I literally dated people and would say to myself, if they gave me a ring, I would take it, but I would not walk down the aisle. Like, I used to tell my friends I would never marry him, but I would date them. And I don't,
Why
I guess I was
do that?
practicing. I don't know what I was doing, but I think I was just holding space. I don't know what I was doing, but in my mind, I knew the exes that I had, I did not want to marry them. Like, I did not see myself being their wife. I saw myself being a wife, but not their wife.
I think that at some kind of level, engagements are still just kind of dating for fun too, because you're not married when you're engaged. And a lot of time people will hold engagements as placeholders. Like, you know, to put the girl on ice. Like, okay, I gave you a ring, girl, shut up. You know, maybe
I
we'll
met a
get
guy
married.
like that the other day. He was like, oh, I'm engaged. I said, oh, how long you been engaged? 2 years. Oh.
I'm not going to talk crap about nobody engagement, because I'm not even engaged, so I can't.
Okay.
But what I can say is I don't understand the point of a long engagement. I just don't. The whole point of an engagement is that you are saying, I want to marry you. So if you put a ring on her finger and then you making her wait a year, 2, 3 years, what's the holdup? You pretty much just don't want to get married. Yeah. Don't ask nobody to marry you if you don't want to get married in, I would say, 6 months. When I get engaged, I don't want to be engaged for more than 6 months. I don't even want to be engaged for 6 months. Like, once you ask me to marry you, okay, let's go do it. Like, I kind of have this this idea in my head that if God called me to marriage and a man asked me to be his wife, and God confirmed it, okay, let's get engaged, and then we can go like get married by ourselves, and then we can have a party later on.
Yes.
You know, because what's the point of the engagement?
I think
like, let's get to it.
The best way to do it.
Yeah.
Just go to the courthouse. What are you waiting for?
Yeah. So did you guys do like the big wedding and everything? Probably.
No, it was in the
really
pandemic. But I didn't want a big wedding because my father passed away when I was 15, and I didn't have anybody to walk me down the aisle. So it wasn't like something I ever desired. Like, I knew from when I was a teenager when he passed that, okay, well, there goes my wedding. Yeah. So I always knew I wanted to do something different. So I did a destination wedding. We got married at the courthouse in Atlanta. Then we had a brunch with our families. So it was during the pandemic. So my family came from Florida. His family, they all met because they had never met before because of the pandemic.
The families didn't even meet yet.
Nope, they did not meet. And it was amazing. It was perfect. And then a couple months later, we went to Jamaica and we did our ceremony. But it was just me and him, a private ceremony. And it was perfect. I wouldn't have had it any other way.
I think that a lot of people, when you have a worldly view of marriage, you think about how it benefits you. You think about the imagery of the wedding and the kids that aren't even here yet. And we don't stop and think about what is the purpose of our marriage. And when you are walking with God, the purpose of your marriage is to glorify Him,
Mhm.
like 100%. It's supposed to be an example of His love. When you think about that, like, do you think that singleness or godly families are more beneficial to like the kingdom?
So I think that there's purpose in both. So
Yeah.
you can be single and have purpose on your life and go to the nations and evangelize and disciple people and be like a spiritual mother to people. But I do feel like we were called to have dominion and to reproduce and to create life. Like God is a creator, He's created us to create. So I do see more purpose in a family, but I don't think that it's more as better. I think it's more as there's more benefits to it. So for me, I care about legacy. I care about the financial wealth that I can leave behind to my kids, the spiritual wealth that I can impart in my children. Because although, like, my father passed when I was 15, there's still a lot that he left in me just on his character, his discipline, the way that he loved God and the way that he served people. There's no man that can match my father. So I feel like that's his legacy. Although it wasn't $1 million or a trust fund, like
Yeah.
there's still a lot of purpose in that. And I just feel like both have purpose. It's just it looks different.
Okay. Do you think that you are called to have children
I do. I would
personally?
love to be a mother. Yes, I
Really?
do. I don't know what it'll feel like or what it'll look like because obviously I'm not a mom, but I feel like I would love to be in that role.
Okay. Um, do you think that it's possible to still have a godly marriage and say no to children?
Yes, but I do feel like you can have spiritual children. I believe in that because we're called to help others, we're called to love others and build relationships. And I feel like I have spiritual fathers, I have spiritual mothers outside of my real mom and my real dad that I feel give me life, just like my parents did. So I feel like whether it's a natural child or a spiritual child, like whether you adopt or you don't adopt, it's to me, I feel like you can still have purpose in that way.
Okay, yeah. So with you getting married young, do you think that you before you got married, or was it even like a thing for you to feel like you were fulfilled in your purpose before you got married because you were
No,
a little bit younger?
absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not. I didn't know what I was doing. I
Mhm.
didn't know what life had um, up for me. I didn't know what I was going to face. I didn't know the warfare that I would deal with. I just thought that we're married, we're life partners, and let's do this. That's literally all I thought. I didn't know what married life was going to be like. Like you don't know until you get in it.
Yeah.
So when
I
we,
mean, you saw your parents.
yes,
So
but my parents, they were Haitian Caribbean Christians. Like I can't come. Like my life looks nothing like my mother's life,
Mhm.
but we're two totally different people.
Yeah.
So for me, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I just knew that I'm a wife now.
Yeah. Do you think that your marriage brought you closer to God?
I think that us deciding that we wanted to take our walk serious is what brought me closer to God. I don't think that my marriage did it. I think that I could have been married and been in the world
Yeah.
for sure. I don't think that it would have been like as healthy as it is or as positive or as influential as it is, but
Yeah.
I could have still been married. I don't think that being with him brought me closer to God. I think that at that season, I really had a need for community,
Yeah.
and church was the only place that I knew to find it because I grew up in church. So
Yeah.
because of that, I think God orchestrated it that way for me and him to come back to him. And I can't imagine my life any other way. I feel like it was literally all God's plan.
Yeah. So definitely God's plan, and I can see how it seems like it really came together. But do you think that it was a risk getting married to a man that was not a man of God when you met him?
I think so. I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend it, but it happened. So we have our own choices. Like God isn't going to force us to do things. I had my own free will. I didn't have to get married to him, but I decided to. And because of that, I can either submit my marriage to Christ or I could not submit my marriage to Christ.
Yeah.
But because I did, I feel like God had a way of blessing it, that a way that he couldn't do it if I wasn't submitted to him.
Yeah. So what does your mom say when you tell her, "Yeah, I met a guy a few months ago
So
and
I
we're
called
getting
him my
married?"
friend. I called him my friend
Okay.
at first. So I didn't, because you got to say friend with Haitian parents because they
Yes.
don't see
You gotta
boyfriend and
say friends with
girlfriend.
Black parents, period. That's your little friend. I couldn't even
Yes.
my boyfriend was never my boyfriend. That was my friend. Okay.
So I called him my friend and he came with me to Florida one time to visit my family. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, mom, this is my friend. We decided to come down together. And she was just like, okay. And she was grilling him a little bit, asking him like what his plans were with me and if he was like really gonna take me serious. But I don't think that she would have thought that I would have gotten engaged as quick as I did. I don't think she
Yeah.
thought that would happen. So
Yeah.
when it happened, she didn't really have much of a reaction. I could tell she was happy for me, but I think she was shocked because we just popped up and I was like, yeah, mom, I'm engaged.
Yeah, like, I couldn't imagine one of my friends saying, "Oh, yeah, like, I've been talking to this guy since December," and then come the summertime, they are married, girl.
Yeah.
Not, "Oh, we starting a date, now we talking, you married, girl." I would be like, "What in the world?"
Yeah, I think she was a little shocked, but she wants me in a marriage. Like, she
Yeah.
doesn't want me shacking up, and she's seen me do it before because he's not the first guy I shacked up with. So I think in her mind, she was relieved because she knew, okay, he's taking her serious and I can trust him. So
Yeah. I mean, girl, there's just so much stuff going on in my head when I think about, like, how quickly you guys got because you didn't meet his family. What if his family
I
didn't
did meet
like
his
you?
family. I
Okay,
did meet his
okay.
family because I was in Georgia, but his family didn't meet my
Oh, yeah,
family.
yeah, that's true.
Yes, I
Okay,
did
okay,
meet his
okay.
family. Amazing people. I have like the best in-laws. Super chill, no drama. I love that life for me. And
Mhm.
I feel like everything happened the way it was supposed to with me. Like, I literally can't imagine my life being a different way. I could think about it, but the feeling of it, everything just feels so right. Even though I didn't do it the right way to start
Mhm.
off, I feel like God has a way of using everything. So even
Definitely.
my past, before I got married, even my teenage years when I was rebellious, like God has a way of bringing all of that back around for my testimony so I can sit down and talk to other people and tell them, don't do it my way, do it
Mhm.
this way. I could tell you why, but this is what the word says. So,
Yeah. So do you think that there was more benefit in you getting married young than you waiting?
um, I I don't
Or not in
know. I
waiting,
don't
but
know because
everything's in God's
I didn't
time,
know
but
when I would get married, but I knew that I wanted to get married younger than, later. So,
yeah. But why did you have that idea? Like, why'd you always, because a lot of women are, the trend is that we're getting married a lot older. The trend is that, I think it used to be like the average age was like 27, and now it's like getting up there to almost 30. So when you think about how the trend is we're getting married older, why was it important for you to say, no, I think I do want to get married younger?
see, thinking back when I was in high school, college, I thought I'd be married by like 21, which is really young.
Yeah.
Like that was just the plan in my head, graduate from college, get married. So, getting married at 25 at that time, it just felt natural. It didn't feel like it was young to me. It didn't feel like I waited cuz I didn't expect it to happen as quick as it did. So,
Mm-hmm.
for me it was just like the way life rolled for me.
Yeah. Do you think that you got all of your young years
I
out?
did.
Like,
I
did
did.
you?
I
But you
did.
said you came and you was trying to
I
be
did.
outside and you didn't get
I
a chance to be
know. I know.
outside.
But I did come back and forth. I did visit Atlanta when I was younger, like in college. One of my best friends used to live out in Atlanta. So I used to travel a lot.
Mhm.
I traveled by myself. I hung out in Orlando because that's where I'm from, around that area. So
Okay.
I had my single time. I had my dating time. Like I had
Mhm.
all of that. I got it out my system. So when I met him and the pandemic hit, I didn't feel like a pressure to like want to talk to other people. It felt like I'm getting to know someone and this just feels right. Like we quickly became best friends.
Okay. And you think that the friendship is the building block.
I think it's important. I do. With us being friends, sometimes I don't like him as a friend. Sometimes I feel like he's not being a good friend one day, but another day we're best friends. You're amazing. I love you. But I just think that having that time where we just sat at home and we didn't go on dates and we had those serious conversations where he talked about his past, I talked about my past. We talked about what we wanted in the future. We talked about our families, like what does your generational bloodline look like? What does mine look like? And then what do we want to build from there? I think that's probably what made him want to marry me. It's because I knew what I wanted.
Okay, definitely. That's definitely important. Like going in, I think laying the groundwork to be very specific and staying firm on what you want going into any relationship is only going to benefit
Yeah, for
you.
sure.
When I don't. It's hard to respect someone that comes into any situation saying, "Oh, whatever happens, happens. Go with the flow." Like,
Yeah.
no, girl, tell me what you want. Like,
Yeah.
tell me what you want out of life. Like, even when we pray, we're supposed to be very specific.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I can definitely respect that, and I can see how he respected that to say, "Oh, like she ain't playing around."
Definitely wasn't. I would say this. I wasn't playing around because I didn't feel like he was a guy that I could play with either.
Oh, okay.
Like his demeanor, the way he carried himself, the way that he treated me, I didn't feel like he could just be one of my guys on the
Yeah.
roster. Like I didn't feel like that at all. I knew that if I was gonna be with him, it would be just him. If I was gonna date him, it was just gonna be just him. I wasn't gonna be, okay, going on a date on Tuesday with you and then Friday with somebody else. Like I knew with him I had to be exclusive.
So with him coming so close off of his previous marriage, was there any doubt in your mind that said, um, that's a little too quick, or make sure that you got that whole thing, closed up? Or I feel like there would even be people that would say you shouldn't have dated him while he
Mhm.
was separated. You should have waited till he was divorced.
Absolutely. I would agree with them. I should have waited till he was divorced. But I feel like because we had those conversations, I understood where he was, and he was going through therapy. Like, he wasn't just out here, I just got separated. I don't want to, you know, go through the process. He went through the process, and for me, I respected that. So I wanted to be his friend. I wasn't pressed to be his girlfriend.
Okay.
We were really friends, and then he never asked me to be his girlfriend. That was never a conversation. It was, we were friends, we quarantined, and then he asked me to marry him. So for me, it was like I never called myself his girlfriend.
Okay. So he asked you to marry him, and then you guys moved in together before you actually got married?
No, we were staying together. We were quarantined together. So we were living together
Okay.
before we got engaged.
Okay.
But I didn't call myself his girlfriend because I always thought that a guy had to ask a girl. Like, that's just how I thought. But I guess not, because he asked me to marry him. You just
Yeah.
skipped that part.
So what was he saying to you that you were like, "Oh, I can't play with him"? Like, you said in the very beginning that you really felt like this was your husband. Like, what was he saying to you to make you feel like that?
One, his purpose, like, he loves music and that's his calling, like, that's his ministry today, and I respected that because he was so disciplined in that area of his life, just knowing that this is something that I believe in, I wanna do, and he's talented. Like, I wouldn't support somebody who wasn't talented. I know some of the girlies do, and I love that for them, but for me, it was like he was good at what he did, he loved what he did, and he was very focused on that, and in our conversations, I knew what he wanted in the future. I knew that he wanted children. I know that he wanted to, like, build a family. He wasn't just out here trying to figure it out, and I
Yeah,
like that about him, and I was like, "You know what? I can take you serious." So we just
definitely.
continued building on that,
Yeah.
and then we got engaged.
Can we talk about how much more attractive a person is when they're living in their purpose?
Mhm.
No matter what they're doing, whether, when they're living in their purpose and when they're good at it. That
Mhm.
makes them so much more attractive. And I think when we talk about security in a marriage or any relationship, we talk about money, we talk about a person's background, but I don't think we talk enough about a person being happy with their life and what they're
Yes.
doing, because that is so much more of a security blanket than anything else. I want a
Absolutely.
person to come to me and be living in their purpose, be good at it, be happy, because that means that in some way they're fulfilled in that. And then I'm not there to make up some other part of them to make them happy, to make them
Mhm.
fulfilled. You already happy, like you already got your own stuff going on, and I'm just the addition. And then
Exactly.
that takes so much weight and pressure off of your shoulders to perform in a relationship and be like, oh, I have to be there for him. I have to be his rib. I got to be this. Like, they're already their own
Mhm.
person. And I'm just like,
A compliment, and that's what
yeah,
it was. I just complimented what he did. Like, he was already good at what he was doing, but I was just bringing other ideas in, or maybe vision into what he was doing to help him see it in a different way. Because
mm-hmm,
he was gonna win regardless, like, with me or without me, like, he was gonna win. But I feel like because we got together, we decided to give our life to Christ. That's when God was able to take his gift and use it for his glory. So, and I respect it. So with or without me, he's gonna do great. I
definitely.
respect his gift, I respect his craft, and I love that about him from the beginning. Even before he knew that I wanna make music for God, he was doing it, and he was doing it at such a high level. I had no choice but to look at him and be like, "Wow, you're dope." Like,
Yeah.
that really impressed me. But just the way that he cared for his family, his mom, his sister, the way he admired his father, the way he talked about his dad, like, all of that just made me respect him so much more.
Do you think that him coming from a two-parent household to where he saw his parents married for decades influenced you to say, okay, this is a good guy because he saw something positive in his life?
Absolutely. I always tell girls now that I talk to, like, look into his family, like, look
Yeah.
into the background of his, like, what is his family like? What's the family structure? What type of home does he come from? Because at the end of the day, a lot of those patterns will happen in your
Yeah, they'll
relationship if
manifest
you
in their later
exactly,
life.
if you
Yeah.
don't pray against it and break those yokes and those curses and those altars, because at the end of the day, you wanna make sure that you know what you're getting yourself into, and I
Oh,
think I love
100%.
the fact that his parents had been married for as long as they were.
Okay, yeah. So, what do you say to people that say to you when they ask about your short engagement? Do you ever get questions about, okay, girl, like, did you even know him? Like, did you properly vet him? Like, how was it that you were, dun, 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 like, how does that come to be?
I think during our engagement, we didn't have a lot of outside voices. I didn't listen to people because you're not going to tell me about my life and what I'm living and what I'm feeling. My mom would talk to me like, just make sure this is what you want, which I appreciate. But I knew in my heart that this is something that I wanted to do, even though I was young, even though it was, in the pandemic, even though he had been separated and divorced, I still knew that I wanted to move forward with it. So I'm the type of person, you can't really tell me something. I have to believe it. Like,
Okay.
I don't just listen to people and be like, you know what? You're right. I
You're
don't
not
do that. I'm
impressionable.
not impressionable at all. Like, I have my own opinions and I stand on it
Yeah.
until I'm convinced otherwise. And it takes a little bit to convince me.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, I don't care how people think. I don't
Yeah.
care what they feel. I don't care what they say. I love the life that I live. And I used to tell my mom, those people don't pay my bills.
No,
They
period.
don't.
Period. I
So,
think that is a trait that we don't talk about enough either. Like when you get into a marriage, you can't, put on a pedestal other people's opinions
mhm.
at all. And a lot of, times that, we get or, people get divorced, you hear these stories about they friends in their ear telling them, girl,
Mhm.
your husband did that, da, 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 da. First of all, that's why
And
you
that
don't tell
was
everybody about what goes on in
yep,
your marriage. That's first of all.
yep.
But second of all, you do hear a lot of stories about they mama, they single mama in their ear, they friends want them to come back to the streets, stay in their ear. Or even with the men, how they have negative influence in their friends. Their friends always want them to come out,
Yep.
be around girls. And it takes a very secure and strong person to be like, nobody can tell me nothing about what I got going on. And that's very important in a marriage because there are so many other outside influences. And unless you are like 10 toes down about your person and about what you're called to do, it's very easy to kind of get stirred up in it.
And we're both the same way. Like, we're both very strong-minded. And I think his previous marriage actually, like, benefits me because he's learned a lot of lessons. Like, he knows what he doesn't want. He knows what he wants. He knows, like, what he wants his marriage to look like. So I think it does help me in that way. Although I, didn't want to be the second wife, I am, but he learned a lot from his first marriage. They got married young,
Yeah.
and it was toxic from his point of view. So in my opinion, it's like, okay, so you've learned, you've grown, you've matured, and let's try it again.
Yeah. I definitely, now that you're explaining more of you guys' backgrounds, it makes sense that, you guys got married and it was a very like, quick decision because when you both come from households to where your parents were married, and probably with his parents being married so long, probably a little bit younger too, that's normalized for you. And
Mhm.
a lot of times, marriage, especially getting married young, is not normalized in the Black community because we don't see too many marriages. I mean, I can count on one hand the amount of weddings I've went to, but I can tell you how many baby showers I went, like I'm tired of the meatballs, but we don't see enough marriages. And that's why marriage is not glorified. It's not something that we look up to. Because we kind of feel like, well, I can wait, I can hold off. But holding off, I feel like only really breeds a playground of things that can just come up, temptation. The longer you wait for anything in your life, the harder it is to resist, the opposition. It's really commendable when people get married young. And that's why I'm just sitting here like, oh my gosh, like you guys did this and then the families met. And then like, it's just kind of like, wow, because you just don't see it that often.
Yeah. And there's a deep, like, fulfillment when it comes to being married. Like, I I know that there's people who are single who can feel fulfilled, and I love that, but for me, it's like it's another level. It
Hmm.
just feels like God has, like, given me a really big assignment that I have to fulfill on this earth
Yeah,
because it's not just about me, it's not just about him, it's about the legacy, it's about the glory that God wants to get from our marriage, and I want people to look at us and be like, "Oh, wow, only God."
definitely.
Only God. Like, literally, my husband was separated when I met him. So,
Hmm.
only God could take that man and make him into an even better husband.
Definitely. So I'm gonna ask you the same thing that I asked Brittany,
Okay.
because we're not all called to marriage.
Okay.
If God did not call you to marriage, if you would have never met this man at the gym, if you would have went to another gym, would you have been disappointed? Would you have felt like your life was not fulfilled?
I think I'd be disappointed. I would, because I would want that level of commitment. Like, I know that I could find a partner and we can call each other life partners and act like we're married, but I think that it just comes with such a deep level of fulfillment that, like, I felt like I needed and I wanted, even though I didn't really
Okay.
understand it. So, if God didn't call me to marriage, I would be a nun, I guess. I
Yeah.
guess, I don't know, because for me, it's like something I always imagined, but I didn't, like, chase it.
Yeah. Definitely. And, the Bible says, delight in the Lord and he'll give you the desires of your heart. So I feel like
Yes,
when we
girl.
really truly desire something and we can use it for God's kingdom, as long as he feels like we can handle it, he'll give it to us. Definitely.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So just, as we're closing out this episode, give the girls one piece of advice. Whatever, getting married young, finding your husband, whatever it is, give the girls a piece of advice.
Okay, so I'm going to speak to the women who are in relationships with men, and you guys are probably both not really taking your spiritual walk serious, and then maybe you guys are deciding to, or you're still on the fence. I would definitely say have grace for each other, because although you're on this walk together, you're still taking it separately. It's him and God, you and God. And I definitely believe that it will be a roller coaster. You'll have good days, you'll have bad days, but have grace for each other, because you just never know what God is doing on the inside of your partner. And you want to be a complement to that. You don't want to tear them down. You don't want to take them off track. You want to make sure that you're supporting them in that walk. So have grace. That's all I would say. Have grace, because marriage is not easy, especially when you're on a spiritual journey separately.
No, great advice. God gives us grace every single day, so we got to give it to
Yes,
other people.
absolutely.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Well, Mrs. St. Cyr-Allen, soon to be just Allen.
Yes, soon to be.
Thank you so much for coming on the this episode. I really appreciate the conversation. I know that you inspired a lot of women out there, because God can take anything and make it good, definitely.
Yes.
And just because you guys weren't walking on your path in the beginning, now you are, and that's really all that matters.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Thank you for having me, girl.
Of course. Thank you
You got to
guys.
have the guys on here. You got to have them on.
No, I definitely will. That'll definitely be a good perspective when we talk about marriage. Yes. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye.